What if the version of you who already has everything you crave isn't hiding in some distant future, but standing behind you right now, tapping on your shoulder, waiting for you to notice the signal? That's not motivational fluff, it's physics wearing a hoodie. Quantum entanglement, the same spooky action that earned the 2022 Nobel Prize, proves distance is an illusion for particles. You, my friend, are far more than a particle. You are a living broadcast tower of identity. And tonight we're hijacking your frequency. Welcome to the 3-step identity collapse protocol that's about to shatter everything you thought you knew about changing your life. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to witness, sever, and choose your way into the timeline where your dream life is already normal. No visualization marathons, no fairy dust, no endless affirmations that make you feel like you're lying to yourself, just raw coherence and the quantum mechanics of consciousness. But before we dive into the protocol that's changed thousands of lives, let me tell you something that might disturb you. Every single day you wake up, you're making an unconscious choice about which version of yourself gets to drive your life. Most people have been letting the same damaged, limited version make decisions for decades without even realizing it. Ready? Let's jump into the rabbit hole, where science meets the impossible, where your biggest problems become your greatest breakthroughs, and where everything you've been taught about change gets turned completely upside down. Imagine two photons born in the same cosmic nursery, sharing the same quantum womb, existing as one unified field of possibility before being torn apart by scientists with more curiosity than common sense. These researchers rip the paired particles apart by 1,000,000 miles, tickle one with a laser, and the other giggles instantly, not in milliseconds, not in nanoseconds, but literally at the same exact moment, across vast distances that should make communication impossible. That instant synchronization shattered Einstein's comfort zone so hard he spent his final years desperately trying to disprove it, calling it spooky action at a distance, because it violated everything he thought he knew about the universe. But the universe doesn't give a damn about Einstein's comfort level, or anyone else's for that matter. In 2022, Alan Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger earned the Nobel Prize in Physics for definitively proving that reality operates on principles that make zero logical sense to our linear minds, and yet are absolutely, undeniably, measurably real. The implications are staggering. The fabric of existence allows linked energies to ignore the supposed rules of space and time, communicating instantly across impossible distances, as if separation itself is just an optical illusion. Now here's where it gets wild for your actual life. You too were born alongside countless versions of yourself across infinite probability waves rippling through the quantum field. The version of you that's supremely confident, abundantly wealthy, radiantly healthy, living in your dream relationship, running that business you're scared to start, speaking on stages, traveling the world, making the impact you know you're meant to make. They're not fantasies floating around in your imagination like cotton candy dreams. They're actual frequencies broadcasting from parallel probability fields, existing with the same reality as the version of you reading these words right now. Your personal radio dial for accessing these realities is your identity, the deep unconscious sense of who you believe yourself to be when nobody else is watching. Twist the dial through conscious choice, catch a new frequency, and live a completely different life, but most people are still trying to manually dig tunnels to their dreams with broken shovels when they could just change the channel with a simple turn of awareness. Here's where we smash headfirst into the line in the sand that separates the curious from the committed, the dreamers from the doers, the talkers from the walkers. Mainstream physicists study quantum entanglement in isolated particles under carefully controlled laboratory conditions, document the impossible results with mathematical precision, publish peer-reviewed papers that nobody reads, collect their research grants and paychecks, then clock out and drive home to lives that operate under completely different rules than the phenomena they just proved exist. They compartmentalize the magic, keeping it safely locked away in academic journals where it can't threaten their ordinary reality. Meanwhile, consciousness researchers, manifestation practitioners, quantum mystics, and reality hackers kick the laboratory door wide open, arguing passionately that if consciousness itself is the ultimate observer that collapses infinite quantum waves into singular solid reality, then why the hell wouldn't the same principles apply directly to your bank account, your relationships, your health, your career, your entire lived experience. They're taking the lab results and applying them to real life, often with results that would make traditional scientists very uncomfortable. Skeptics scream pseudoscience and confirmation bias and dangerous wishful thinking. Mystics whisper back, welcome to the playground where thought becomes thing, where belief becomes biology, where identity becomes destiny. Here's the brutal truth that nobody talks about. Both camps are absolutely correct within their own timeline, their own reality bubble, their own carefully constructed frequency of existence. The physicist who believes consciousness is just brain chemistry firing in predetermined patterns will experience a reality where consciousness feels limited to brain chemistry. The mystic who knows consciousness actively shapes and molds reality will live in a world where thoughts have immediate, tangible power to reorganize matter. But here's what neither side wants to admit. Debates don't pay your bills. Arguments don't heal your childhood trauma. Intellectual positions don't fix your relationships. And being right doesn't manifest your dreams into physical form. States do. Frequencies do. The coherent identity you broadcast into the quantum field every single moment through your thoughts, beliefs, body language, energy, choices, and reactions to every micro situation does. So park the intellectual argument at the door and focus laser sharp on the one thing you can actually control right now, the signal you're transmitting through your entire being into the field of infinite possibility. Neurologists and brain researchers have made a discovery that should terrify and liberate you in equal measure. Up to 95% of your daily experience is being run by subconscious autopilot programs that were installed without your permission before you turned 7 years old. Let that sink in for a moment and feel the full weight of what that means. The version of you making most of your important life decisions, reacting to challenges, choosing responses to stress, deciding what's possible or impossible, determining your worthiness for love and success, that version is literally a wounded child operating with incomplete information, outdated survival strategies, and emotional wounds that haven't been updated, healed, or even acknowledged in decades. That child version absorbed every criticism, every limitation, every fear from adults who were themselves operating from their own unhealed childhood programming. It's wounded children raising wounded children who grow up to become wounded adults, all running the same broken software and wondering why their lives feel stuck in repetitive loops. Hebb's law in neuroscience states with scientific precision that neurons that fire together wire together, meaning the stories, thoughts, emotions, and reactions you unconsciously rehearse through repetition become the neural superhighways that your brain automatically defaults to every single time. Those seemingly innocent childhood labels, you're too sensitive, money doesn't grow on trees, don't get your hopes up, good things don't happen to people like us, you have to work hard for everything, fused with teenage heartbreak, early career failures, that brutal rejection from 5 years ago, and last week's disappointment into one thick, seemingly unbreakable identity loop that runs your life like malware runs a computer. Want to spot your specific programming in real time? Pay ruthless attention to your self-talk when no one else is listening, especially during mundane moments that seem unimportant. Notice the background commentary running during ordinary activities, waiting in line at the store, checking your phone for messages, looking at yourself in the mirror, opening bills or checking your bank account, walking into a room full of strangers. That subtle but constant inner dialogue, often critical, worried, resigned, defensive, or apologetic, is the actual code that the quantum field reads as your primary broadcast signal. It's not your conscious dreams, your written goals, your vision board, or your Sunday morning affirmations that reality responds to. It's the unconscious frequency you emit when you think nobody, including yourself, is paying attention. Most people are desperately trying to manifest million-dollar lifestyles while unconsciously broadcasting from broke, scared, unworthy programming that's been running the show since they learned to tie their shoes. That's like trying to tune into a classical music station while your radio is permanently locked onto death metal. The frequencies just won't match, no matter how hard you try or how much you want them to. Let's demolish some extremely dangerous myths about quantum jumping before we go any deeper into the practical mechanics, because the internet is absolutely polluted with fantasyland versions that set people up for frustration, failure, and sometimes even psychological harm. No, you don't need to astrally project your consciousness into parallel dimensions like some kind of interdimensional traveler. No, you don't need to chant Sanskrit mantras until sunrise or visualize yourself into dissociative states where you lose touch with reality. No, you don't need to take psychedelic substances or perform elaborate rituals involving crystals, sage, and full moon ceremonies. A genuine quantum jump is not an escape hatch from reality, a magical teleportation device, or a way to bypass the natural laws of cause and effect. It's a sudden, decisive, irreversible shift in identity that stops the exhausting pretending and starts the authentic embodiment of who you actually are, beneath all the conditioning. It's the moment you quit trying to become someone worthy of your dreams and start being someone who knows their worth is non-negotiable, built-in, factory-installed by the universe itself. Take Maya, a burnt-out graphic designer who was charging $30 an hour for creative work that demanded $300, slowly dying inside while creating million-dollar campaigns for clients who barely remembered her name. She spent months doing elaborate vision boards, morning affirmations that felt like lies, and complex manifestation rituals she found on YouTube, but her bank account stayed painfully flat because her core identity was still locked in grateful for scraps mode. She would literally apologize for sending invoices, as if asking to be paid for her work was somehow offensive. Then one Tuesday morning, after another sleepless night worrying about rent, something fundamental shifted inside her, not through meditation or manifestation, but through pure exhaustion with being small. Instead of her usual people-pleasing, discount-heavy proposal, she sent a quote that was 10 times her normal rate, with a delivery timeline that actually respected her creative process. She didn't hope it might work or cross her fingers for luck. She sent it because that's simply what the next level Maya would charge without blinking, without apology, without negotiation. The client didn't counteroffer, didn't try to negotiate her down, didn't even hesitate. They said yes within 2 hours and praised her professionalism. Within 6 months, every single client was paying the new premium rates. Her income had exploded by over 1,000%, and opportunities were flowing in faster than she could evaluate them. She didn't change careers, didn't learn new technical skills, didn't work longer hours or hustle harder. She changed her broadcast frequency by embodying the version of herself who already knew she was worth 10 times more and had always been worth that much. That's not magic or luck or positive thinking. That's identity physics in action. So how do you trigger this kind of life-altering leap on command? How do you consciously shift from the frequency that's keeping you trapped in mediocrity to the frequency where your wildest dreams are already normal, boring reality? Buckle up, because we're about to dive into the practical mechanics of identity collapse, and I'm warning you right now, this process will feel uncomfortable because it requires you to let a familiar version of yourself die permanently. Step 1 is called witnessing, and it's the most crucial step that absolutely everyone skips because it requires you to get brutally uncomfortably honest about who's actually been driving your life decisions for years. Right now, wherever you are, close your eyes for 30 seconds and ask yourself this question without flinching away from whatever comes up. Who is the me that's been making my decisions, reacting to challenges, and choosing my responses to life's curveballs? Don't think about who you want to be, who you're trying to become, or who you present yourself as on social media. Feel deeply into who has actually been steering the ship of your existence. Notice the specific flavor of this identity. Maybe there's a familiar slump in your shoulders that whispers, "I'm not good enough, and I never will be." Maybe there's a chronic tightness in your jaw that says life is hard and I have to fight tooth and nail for everything I get. Maybe there's a hollow, anxious feeling in your chest that constantly murmurs, "I'm behind everyone else, I'm late to the party, I'm missing something crucial that everyone else figured out years ago." Maybe there's a heaviness in your stomach that insists, "Good things happen to other people, but not to people like me." Don't judge these discoveries, don't try to immediately fix them, and definitely don't make yourself wrong for having them. Everyone has these programs running in the background. Simply observe them with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying weather patterns or a nature photographer documenting wildlife behavior. The moment you can clearly see the software that's been running your life, you automatically stop being that software. Awareness creates space between you and your programming, and space creates the possibility of choice. Most people are so completely identified with their limitations, fears, and inherited beliefs about money, love, success, and possibility that they genuinely think they are those limitations. They can't imagine existing without their familiar struggle. their predictable problems, their comfortable complaints, but you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not your habits, and you are definitely not your past experiences or family programming. You are the eternal consciousness that's aware of all those temporary phenomena, which means you have the inherent power to choose something completely different starting right now. Witnessing is demolition in slow motion, the gentle but relentless destruction of the illusion that you're permanently stuck being who you've always been. Now we arrive at the part that separates the genuinely committed from the merely curious, the moment that determines whether you'll actually change or just collect more interesting information. Severing. This is where you consciously cut the energetic cord that's been keeping you entangled with the limited, struggling version of yourself. And I'm going to be honest with you, most people completely chicken out right here because it requires you to allow a familiar identity to die permanently, and humans are terrified of any kind of death, even psychological death that leads to rebirth. You've been practicing being you for years or decades, which means your nervous system, your brain chemistry, and even your cellular structure have become addicted to the specific cocktail of thoughts, emotions, and reactions that make up your current identity. Familiar depression feels safer than unfamiliar joy. Predictable struggle feels more comfortable than uncertain abundance. Known limitation feels less scary than unknown possibility. Your system will fight to maintain the status quo, even when the status quo is slowly killing your dreams. Speak these words out loud if you have the courage, or internally if you're in public, but make sure you feel the weight of what you're saying. This identity no longer commands my field. I release it with gratitude for how it tried to protect me during difficult times, and I consciously choose to be free from its limitations starting now. The words alone aren't nearly enough. You absolutely must anchor this declaration with a significant physical disruption that jolts your nervous system completely out of its familiar patterns and creates a clear before and after moment. Plunge both hands into ice-cold water and hold them there until your breath changes. Sprint up a flight of stairs until your heart pounds. Do 50 jumping jacks or push-ups until your body is fully activated, or exhale every single molecule of air from your lungs and hold the emptiness until your system demands a breath. Why is the physical shock so crucial? Because your identity isn't just a mental concept floating around in your head. It's neurological, energetic, hormonal, and cellular. You've been practicing the same thoughts, emotions, and stress responses for so long that your body has become chemically dependent on being you. The familiar cocktail of cortisol, adrenaline, and other stress hormones that accompany your usual worries and limitations has become your normal baseline. Even misery can feel like home when you've lived there long enough and decorated it with enough reasons, stories, and justifications. The physical disruption breaks what psychologists call state-dependent memory, the tendency for your mind and body to automatically return to familiar patterns when triggered by similar circumstances. It's like hitting Control-Alt-Delete on a computer that's been frozen in the same program for years. For a brief but powerful moment, your entire system doesn't know who it's supposed to be, doesn't know what its default responses should be, and in that gap of confusion and uncertainty, the old frequency scrambles desperately, hunting for proof that it still exists, searching for evidence that you're still the same person with the same limitations, problems, and struggles. This is the moment of truth. Don't feed the old identity any attention, energy, or airtime. Don't defend why you used to think or act that way. Don't explain or justify your previous choices. Don't give it even a moment of consideration or validation. Complete silence is the blade that cuts the energetic cord permanently. The previous version of you only has power if you believe its voice still belongs to you, if you still consider its opinions relevant to your current choices. Here comes the most exciting and simultaneously most challenging part of the entire process. Choosing your new identity and then embodying it consistently until it becomes more real than your old limitations ever were. Step 3 is called choosing, and this is where most people either level up permanently into their dream life or collapse back into familiar patterns because they mistake the discomfort of growth for evidence of failure. Choosing isn't a one-time decision you make during a moment of inspiration. It's a moment-by-moment, breath-by-breath commitment to consistently embody the version of yourself who already lives in the reality you desire. Stand up right now, wherever you are, and consciously adjust your entire physical posture to match the person who has everything you've been seeking. Not the person desperately trying to get those things. Not the person hoping and wishing and crossing their fingers, but the person who already has them and considers them completely normal and predictable. Feel the profound difference in how you hold your shoulders, broader, more relaxed, more open to receiving. Notice how your spine naturally straightens when you're not carrying the weight of limitation and struggle. Pay attention to the way you hold your head, higher, steadier, with quiet confidence, instead of anxious scanning. Feel how your breathing naturally deepens and slows when you're not constantly braced for disappointment or rejection. This isn't fake it till you make it territory where you're pretending to be someone you're not. This is genuine embodiment of a frequency that's always been available to you but got buried under years of conditioning, trauma, and social programming. Ask yourself this life-changing question and really sit with the answer. What does this elevated version of me never tolerate in their life, relationships, or business? Then immediately cut that thing completely out of your existence today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are more favorable. Maybe it's responding to that energy-draining text from someone who only contacts you when they need something. Maybe it's underpricing your services because you're terrified potential clients will say no and you'll have to face rejection. Maybe it's mindlessly scrolling social media before bed when you know it disrupts your sleep and fills your subconscious with other people's highlight reels. Maybe it's staying in conversations that consistently make you feel small, invisible, or misunderstood. Maybe it's allowing people to interrupt you mid-sentence or dismiss your ideas without consideration. These seemingly small micro-decisions are actually quantum keystrokes that literally overwrite the fundamental code of your reality programming. Your current bank account still shows numbers that make you uncomfortable? Respond from abundance consciousness anyway. Negotiate that raise you've been postponing. Launch the project you've been perfecting for years. Invest in the coaching or education that scares you financially. Hire the support team you think you can't afford yet. The quantum field isn't grading your current circumstances or judging your temporary financial situation. It's constantly reading and responding to the coherence of your identity, the unwavering frequency of who you know yourself to be, regardless of what temporary appearances might suggest to your logical mind. Now let's have an honest conversation about the phase that absolutely nobody warns you about, the part that catches everyone off guard and causes most people to panic and undo all their progress, the recalibration period that inevitably follows any genuine quantum jump. Expect serious turbulence, and I mean energetic, emotional, physical, and social turbulence that might temporarily shake every single area of your life like a snow globe that's been vigorously shaken. This isn't a sign that something's wrong, it's actually proof that something's finally right. Friends and family members might suddenly label you as different or changed, and they definitely won't mean it as a compliment. People who were perfectly comfortable with the old limited version of you might feel genuinely threatened by your new energy, confidence, and standards. They might try to pull you back into familiar dynamics through guilt, criticism, jokes that aren't really jokes, or sudden emergencies that require you to abandon your new habits and return to caretaking mode. Understand that their discomfort has absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with how your transformation is forcing them to confront their own stagnation and unfulfilled potential. Old cravings and behavioral patterns will flare up like ghosts desperately trying to reclaim their territory in your psyche. Suddenly you'll want to binge-watch Netflix until 3 a.m., eat foods that make you feel sluggish and cloudy, dive into toxic relationships or situations that you know aren't aligned with your new frequency, or engage in other self-sabotaging behaviors that the old identity used to numb difficult emotions. You might experience several nights of insomnia as your nervous system adjusts to operating without familiar stress hormones, emotional detox symptoms that feel like grief or unexplained sadness, mental fog or confusion as your brain rewires itself, or even flu-like physical purging as your body releases cellular memory and stress that's been stored in your tissues for years. Some people report incredibly vivid dreams, increased synchronicities that feel almost supernatural, or the strange sensation that they're living in a slightly different world where colors seem brighter, conversations flow differently, and meaningful coincidences happen constantly. This isn't your imagination running wild or wishful thinking. This is the practical, measurable result of shifting your energetic broadcast signal and tuning into a different frequency of reality. Here's the crucial distinction that will determine whether you successfully integrate your new identity or crash back into old patterns. Discomfort during the recalibration phase is concrete evidence of successful departure from your old frequency, not proof that the process isn't working or that you're doing something wrong. When the inevitable static hits and the familiar old voice starts whispering seductively, "See, nothing really changed. You're still the same person with the same problems. This quantum stuff is just new age nonsense." Take a slow, deep breath, smile at the predictability of resistance, and gently repeat the 3-step protocol in microform throughout your day. Witness the wobble without becoming identified with it. Sever the story that wants to drag you backward into familiar limitation, and choose again and again from your new identity with patient persistence. Consistency over time, not intensity in the moment, is what permanently stabilizes your new frequency and makes the quantum leap irreversible. Here's the secret: that expensive manifestation courses, best-selling self-help books, and popular spiritual teachers conveniently forget to mention because it would undermine their entire business model. The quantum field is completely deaf to craving, begging, desperate wanting, and emotional manipulation, but it's exquisitely sensitive to the quiet, unshakable certainty of someone who knows exactly who they are. Stop trying to convince the universe that you deserve good things like you're pleading your case in cosmic court, and start operating from the calm, matter-of-fact knowing that abundance, love, success, health, and joy are simply normal expressions of your authentic nature, as natural and inevitable as breathing or your heart beating. When you operate from this level of coherence, where your thoughts, emotions, words, actions, and energy are all broadcasting the same crystal-clear signal without contradiction or internal conflict, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around your new frequency, like iron filings automatically arranging themselves around a magnet. It's not magic, mysticism, or wishful thinking. It's physics applied to consciousness. It's not manifestation in the desperate, grasping sense. It's identity alignment in the most natural sense. And it doesn't happen through force, manipulation, trying harder, or pushing against what is. It happens through the elegant simplicity of being authentically who you actually are, instead of continuing to pretend to be who you learned you had to be to survive, get approval, or avoid rejection. The quantum field has been patiently waiting for you to remember that you were never actually chasing your dream life like it was some external destination. You were always just returning to it, coming home to it, recognizing the version of yourself who knows that everything you desire already exists in the field of infinite possibility and is simply waiting for you to stop arguing with its availability, stop negotiating with your worthiness, and start embodying the frequency that makes those dreams inevitable. The version of you who has everything isn't hiding in the future requiring years of struggle to reach. That version exists right now in this moment and is accessible through the simple but revolutionary act of choosing to be them instead of the one who believes they can't have what they want. But let's go even deeper into the practical application, because knowing the theory is useless unless you can apply it when life gets messy, chaotic, and challenging. Every single day presents you with dozens of micro opportunities to either reinforce your new identity or collapse back into old patterns. And most people miss these moments completely because they're waiting for dramatic, life-changing circumstances to practice their new frequency. The real transformation happens in boring, ordinary moments that seem insignificant. How you respond when someone cuts you off in traffic, the energy you bring to mundane conversations, the way you handle unexpected bills or setbacks, the internal dialogue that runs when you look in the mirror, the thoughts you choose when your phone doesn't ring, the stories you tell yourself about why certain things haven't manifested yet. These microseconds of choice are where your new identity either becomes real or remains a fantasy. Practice responding to every single situation from your elevated frequency, especially when it feels unnatural, forced, or like you're faking it. That discomfort is actually your nervous system stretching beyond its comfort zone, which is exactly what's required for genuine transformation. When someone disrespects your boundaries, respond from the version of you who expects respect as a baseline, not from the one who's grateful for any attention. When unexpected expenses arise, handle them from abundance consciousness rather than scarcity panic, even if your bank account disagrees with your energy. When opportunities appear, say yes from expansion rather than no from fear, even when the logical mind can list 17 reasons why it won't work. Your new identity must be practiced and embodied consistently before external evidence appears to support it, not the other way around. Most people wait for their circumstances to change before they'll allow themselves to feel abundant, confident, or worthy. But that's backwards quantum mechanics. The field responds to your state, not your situation. Your frequency determines your circumstances, not vice versa. Let's also address the elephant in the room that nobody talks about. What happens to your relationships when you genuinely quantum jump into a higher frequency of existence? Brace yourself, because this might be the most challenging aspect of your transformation, and it's where many people get scared and retreat back to familiar limitations. Some relationships will effortlessly evolve and expand to meet your new energy. The people who truly love and support you will celebrate your growth, even if they don't fully understand what's happening. They'll intuitively rise to match your elevated frequency, and you'll experience deeper intimacy, more authentic communication, and genuine mutual support in ways that might surprise both of you. But other relationships, and this includes family members, longtime friends, romantic partners, and professional connections, might feel threatened by your transformation and unconsciously or deliberately try to sabotage your progress. They might use guilt, "You're so different now, you don't care about us anymore." Shame, "Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty?" Fear, "This new age stuff is going to ruin your life." Or manipulation, "If you really loved me, you'd go back to being who you used to be," to pull you back into familiar dynamics where they feel comfortable and in control. Understanding that their resistance has absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own unexamined limitations is crucial for maintaining your new frequency during these challenging interactions. Some people are so invested in your old identity because it makes them feel better about their own stagnation. When you stop complaining, stop struggling, stop being available for toxic drama, stop accepting less than you deserve, you become a walking mirror that reflects their own unused potential, and that can feel unbearable for people who aren't ready to face their own capacity for transformation. You might need to love some people from a distance, set firmer boundaries than ever before, or in extreme cases, completely disconnect from relationships that are fundamentally incompatible with your new frequency. This isn't cruel or selfish, it's energetic integrity. You cannot maintain a high-frequency lifestyle while regularly engaging with low-frequency relationships. The drain is too significant, and the pull backward is too strong. Now let's explore advanced techniques for maintaining and amplifying your new frequency once you've successfully made the initial jump. Because quantum jumping isn't a one-time event. It's a way of life that requires ongoing maintenance, fine-tuning, and conscious evolution. Think of your new identity like a radio frequency that needs to be kept clear and strong through deliberate practices and choices. Environmental design becomes crucial. You must consciously curate your physical surroundings, media consumption, social interactions, and daily routines to support your elevated frequency rather than undermine it. This means removing or minimizing exposure to anything that consistently pulls you back toward old patterns. Negative news that triggers anxiety and powerlessness, social media accounts that make you feel inadequate or behind, physical clutter that creates mental fog, toxic relationships that drain your energy, activities that numb your consciousness rather than expand it. Simultaneously, you want to saturate your environment with frequency-raising influences, books, podcasts, and content that inspire and educate rather than entertain and distract, music that elevates your emotional state, physical spaces that feel abundant and beautiful rather than chaotic and depressing, people who challenge you to grow rather than enable you to stay small, activities that expand your consciousness and capabilities rather than contract them. Create what I call identity anchors, physical objects, rituals, or practices that immediately remind you of your new frequency when the old patterns try to resurface. This might be a piece of jewelry that you only wear when embodying your elevated self, a specific posture or breathing pattern that instantly shifts your state, a mantra or affirmation that reconnects you to your true power, or a physical location where you go to recalibrate when life gets overwhelming. The key is consistency and repetition until these anchors become automatic triggers that can instantly shift your frequency, even in challenging circumstances. Let me share some of the most common mistakes I see people make during their quantum jumping journey, because avoiding these pitfalls can save you months or even years of frustration and setbacks. Mistake number 1 is trying to jump too far too fast. Your nervous system needs time to adjust to operating at a higher frequency. And if you try to go from broke to millionaire overnight, from socially anxious to confident public speaker in a week, or from toxic relationships to perfect love in a month, you'll likely trigger such intense resistance that you'll crash back to baseline or even below. Make quantum leaps in increments. If you're currently making $30,000 a year, jump to the version of you who naturally makes $60,000, get stable there, then jump to $120,000, and so on. Mistake number 2 is focusing exclusively on external results while ignoring internal alignment. The new car, the romantic relationship, the business success are byproducts of embodying your elevated identity, not the goals themselves. When you chase outcomes instead of embodying states, you stay trapped in wanting rather than having, which broadcasts scarcity no matter how much you visualize abundance. Mistake number 3 is trying to quantum jump while still engaging in frequency-lowering behaviors and relationships. You cannot maintain a high-vibration identity while regularly consuming low-vibration media, engaging in gossip or complaint sessions, eating foods that make you feel sluggish, or staying in relationships where you're consistently disrespected. The conflicting signals cancel each other out, and you stay stuck in the middle. Mistake number 4 is giving up during the recalibration period when the old identity fights back. This phase is completely predictable and temporary, but it feels so uncomfortable that many people interpret it as evidence that the process isn't working. Stay the course, trust the process, and remember that resistance is proof of progress, not proof of problems. Finally, let's talk about the long-term maintenance and evolution of your quantum jumping practice. Because the most successful people understand that transformation isn't a destination. It's a way of life that requires ongoing attention, refinement, and conscious evolution. Your capacity to quantum jump actually increases with practice. The more often you successfully witness, sever, and choose, the more fluid and natural the process becomes. What once required intense focus and effort eventually becomes as automatic as breathing. You develop what I call quantum agility, the ability to quickly recognize when you're operating from an outdated frequency and immediately shift into alignment with your current goals and desires. This means regularly auditing your identity to ensure it's still serving your evolution. The version of you that successfully attracted your first business milestone might need to be released to make room for the version who can handle 10 times that level of success. The identity that helped you escape toxic relationships might need to evolve into one that can create and maintain extraordinary intimacy. Personal growth is an infinite game, and your identity must continue expanding to match your expanding dreams and capabilities. Create regular quantum check-ins where you honestly assess whether your current identity is aligned with your current desires. Ask yourself, is the person I'm being on a daily basis the same person who naturally has everything I want? If not, what needs to shift? This isn't about constantly dissatisfied with who you are. It's about recognizing that you are a dynamic, evolving consciousness with unlimited potential for growth and expansion. The quantum field has been patiently waiting for you to remember that you were never actually separate from the version of you that has everything you desire. The entanglement has always been active. The connection has always been live. The frequency has always been available. You were just temporarily tuned into a different station that convinced you those realities were impossible, unrealistic, or meant for other people, but not for you. But now you know the truth. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not limited by your past. You are not stuck with the identity you inherited from family, society, or previous experiences. You are a conscious creator with the power to quantum jump into any reality that you can embody with consistency and authenticity. The version of you reading these words right now has already begun the transformation just by receiving this information and feeling it resonate in your body as truth rather than theory. So tell me in the comments below, and be brutally honest, what is the exact timeline you're ready to collapse today? Not the future reality you hope to eventually create, but the present identity you absolutely refuse to continue embodying for one more day. Your words aren't just comments, they're coordinates broadcasting your new location to the quantum field, sending a clear signal about who you're choosing to be starting right now. Subscribe if you're genuinely committed to staying on this frequency of transformation and conscious evolution, because next week we're taking this quantum jumping foundation and scaling it into advanced techniques for quantum business building, quantum relationship creation, and quantum health transformation. The playground of possibility is infinite, and you've only just begun to explore what becomes available when you remember who you really are. Until then, remember, you were never chasing your dream life. You were always just returning home to the version of yourself who knows that miracles aren't exceptions to the rule. They're the natural result of living in alignment with your authentic frequency. Stay coherent, stay courageous, and quantum jump like the interdimensional being you've always been.